Hi guys, Olive here. Here today with what I am very sad to say is the next to last video in what has been a very epic Trash My Bookshelves fiction unhauling project. I took on this project in the spring of this year, so a few months back. So this has been going on for some time, but just in case this is your first time tuning into one of these videos, or if you're brand new to the channel, basically what the Trash My Bookshelves project is my attempt to cut back on the number of unread fiction books that I owned. I decided that I owned far too many. I had 5 full bookshelves of fiction that lived on this bookcase behind me, and I just didn't want as many as I had. I had a number of different reasons why I felt that way, and I talked about those in previous videos for this project, so I'll link the playlist for you down below. But I was reading a lot more nonfiction than fiction, is the very, very basic reason. So I decided that it didn't make a whole lot of sense for all of those fiction books to be taking up shelf space that I could put nonfiction books on instead. I had been wanting to do something like that for a really long time, but the reason why I hadn't yet is that, frankly, I was scared of getting rid of books that I could go on to love or keeping books that I would go on to hate. You have no way of knowing until you read the book yourself. You really have no idea what's going to be in the book and what might appeal to you until you've actually opened it. So I always felt like I would be going into that project completely blind if I took it on alone. So I decided to ask for your help with this project. So for each of the 5 shelves, I would make 2 different videos. The first video is the video in which I would show you all of the books that used to live on one of the 5 shelves. I would show them to you one by one and then ask for your opinions on them. I give you 2 to 3 weeks to give me all of your feedback on any or even all of the books contained on that shelf, whatever you have opinions on. And then after consulting your comments and just thinking about how I'm feeling about the books in that moment, I start to make some hard decisions about which ones I'm going to keep on my shelves and which ones I'm going to sell to my local used bookstore. But inevitably, after that process, there are still a handful of books that I don't know what to do with. Either I didn't get enough feedback on them, or opinions in the comment section of the first video were really mixed. So I take a maximum of 5 books from each shelf, and I do a try a chapter tag, where I read 20 to 25 pages from each of those 5 books, and then I use that information to help me finalize my decisions for the entire shelf. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but today's video is the last video of the first type. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you all the books that used to live on shelf number 5 out of a total of 5 shelves that I was looking to clear out through this project. This is the last shelf. But since we are in the final stretch, I definitely have to ask you one final time if you have any opinions, large or small, on any of the books that you are about to see. Please leave me a comment in the comment section. There have been so many different occasions throughout this project where I was feeling one way about a book going in to making the video, and then by the end of that shelf's 2 video run, I felt a whole different way about it. You all have led me in the right direction countless times throughout this project, so I am really, really paying attention to all of your feedback. It's your opportunity to have a say in the book collection that I end up with at the end of this project. So please, even if you think your opinion is very small, even if you don't have much to say, or even if you're normally a lurker and you're not a huge fan of commenting, I ask you just to make a small, quick exception for this video because I really need to hear your thoughts. If you want to go straight back to lurking, you can. Of course, I would love to hear from you more frequently, but if you want to go straight back to what you like, that's fine. I really need your help. I'm excited that the project is almost done, if only because I know that means I'm one step closer to doing the big book reorganization project that I've been planning on doing in October since I started this project back in May. I've been thinking about it for that long, so of course I'm excited about that. But I'm honestly kind of sad that this is almost done. I have grown to love this project way more than I thought I was going to. You all have seemed to enjoy watching it way more than I thought you were going to. So it really does feel like it's the end of something, which is always sad, but I guess that just means we'll have to make the most of this final round. So here we go. Let me show you all the books that used to live on shelf number 5. Okay, so starting off, I do think I want to keep this first one. This is Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. I was talked into giving this book a try by Stephanie from That's What She Read. She's really not been making booktube videos lately. She's been focusing mainly on her horror book podcast called Books in the Freezer. You should definitely check it out if you like horror books. But we were out book shopping together one time. Stephanie also lives in the Pittsburgh area, so we've been able to meet up in person many times over the years. But one time when we were out book shopping, she talked me into trying Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, which I was originally not interested in doing because I really hated the marriage plot. So at that point, I didn't really have a whole lot of interest in reading his other books, but she convinced me to give it a try. I read that book and I really liked it. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. And then she also talked me into giving this story of a blended family a try. Since she led me in the right direction one time, I trust that I will probably also enjoy this. So I can see myself picking this up. I'm going to keep this one. I've been needing to read this one for a really long time. This is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. This book gives the perspective and backstory of one of the characters from Jane Eyre. This is Bertha's story. I've heard a lot about this one on BookTube over the years. It's why I picked it up, but not everything I've heard about it has been positive. So I'm not 100% sure about this one. I'm leaning toward keeping it, but please tell me what you thought of it. This next one is a bind-up of 2 different Nancy Mitford novels. This is The Pursuit of Love and Love in a Cold Climate. I've always been really interested in both of these, but of course I have a whole renewed interest in The Pursuit of Love since Amazon just made a mini-series out of it. I think it was a mini-series and not a movie, but I have heard a lot of good things about both of these over the years, so I'm expecting that in the comments a lot of you will tell me to keep this, but I guess we'll see. Now, my copy of this next book is not in great shape, but I got it at a library book sale. And for any of you who've ever been to one of those sales or even a used bookstore, you'll know that sometimes you just kind of have to take what you can get if you see a book you really want. And I love Lauren Groff. So when I saw this copy of Delicate Edible Birds, I had to pick it up regardless of what shape it was in. This was her first short story collection, and this one came out in 2009, I believe it was, long before she released Fates and Furies. And I've been wanting to go back and read her backlist, especially since I just recently read and reviewed Matrix, and it reminded me how much I love her writing. So even though this copy is dingy, even though I normally don't read short story collections, this one's gonna stay. This next one I got, I think it was about a year ago, so relatively recently. I got it at a Goodwill. This is Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. This is a pop culture classic. It's about 3 friends who climb to the top of the entertainment industry in New York City. There might be some substance abuse in there as well. I have been meaning to read this book and watch the movie for such a long time. It feels like this big gap in my pop culture knowledge, and I would very much like to fill that gap. So I'm definitely going to keep this one. I very much want to read it. And also this copy is just so cool. I cannot believe I found this at Goodwill for $1. All right, I've got another Meg Wolitzer novel here. Part of the big book reorganization project I'm going to do will be to put all the Meg Wolitzer novels in the same place. That would be really nice to know I can go to that one place and find all of the ones that I own. But the one that was on shelf number 5 is called The Position. And like I said in a previous video for this project, I am going to keep all the Meg Wolitzer novels because I'm slowly working my way through all of them. So eventually I will read this one, which is about the children of parents who authored a Joy of Sex type book in the 1970s and how that fact affects the family throughout the decades. All right, I would only ever get rid of this next one in order to get a new edition of it because I really don't like the movie tie-in cover of White Oleander by Janet Fitch. This is another drawback to shopping at library book sales and used bookstores. Sometimes you get excited about a book and you pick up an edition that you later go on to really dislike. And that's the position that I'm in right now because I know I want to read this book. It deals with the foster system. I have a special interest in the foster system. I know I'm going to read this someday, but I just don't think I want this edition. I will probably eventually go out and get a different edition that has a better cover. I'll have to do some research and see which cover I like best because I haven't even done that yet. But I probably won't do that right now. I'll make that a later project. I think I have enough to do right now. So I'm going to keep this one, but I'm going to swap it out eventually. Okay, next up, I have a couple of Margaret Atwood books. And to be honest with you, I don't know entirely how I feel about Margaret Atwood. I've never really connected with her books. So I honestly think both of these are candidates for the boot, especially, unfortunately, Alias Grace. Because even though I am interested in this story, which is about a woman accused of committing a double murder, and I would really like to read it and then go on and watch the Netflix adaptation, I have a really negative association with this book. This is a book that I took with me when I was very briefly in the hospital a number of years ago. It was my gallbladder, but we didn't know that yet. So I was just in the hospital in pain, scared, frustrated because we didn't know what it was. And also they wouldn't let me go home after they decided that the tests were inconclusive. It was a whole mess. Once they took my gallbladder out several months later, I got better and I've been happier ever since. But this book reminds me of that really not great time. I couldn't focus on this book while I was there. There was just way too much going on. And there have been a couple of other books that I've looked at throughout this project that I've felt negatively about because of things going on in my life when I tried to read them the first time. And I have felt really good about the decision to get rid of those books because it's just not worth the mental turmoil. So barring some sort of extraordinary circumstance, I'm going to get rid of this, finally. I don't have such negative associations with The Blind Assassin. I just don't think I want this. It's apparently a story within a story, and the first story is about a woman in the 1940s who may have been involved with the death of her sister, and then the story within that story is a sci-fi story. I have no idea why I bought this originally. I think I got it used somewhere, but this does not sound like my kind of thing at all. I have another one of my husband's books on this shelf that he read and then passed along to me because he really wanted me to read it, and I'm sure still does. This is Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates, which is the story of a very toxic couple in the 1960s American suburbs. And I do really want to read this one. I know Tony would very much like it if I finally read it. I don't remember if he ended up watching the movie adaptation after he read this, but if he didn't, maybe that's something we could watch together after I finally read this. Okay, this book I think I still want. It is about a couple, hopefully a far less toxic one than the couple in Revolutionary Road, but this is called Frances and Bernard by Carleen Bauer. This book is apparently based on the lives of Flannery O'Connor and Robert Lowell, and this book tells the story of two different people, Frances and Bernard, who meet at an artist's colony in the summer of 1957, and they develop a very deep friendship that changes the course of their lives. This one sounds fantastic. I think I remember Laura Frey having really good things to say about this one many years ago. I could definitely see myself picking this one up, so I'm going to keep it. Oh, I would really hate to get rid of this next one because it is so beautiful, but I have heard that The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, sequel to The Shadow of the Wind, isn't quite as good as the first book. Do any of you think that? Have you heard that? Because I'm willing to keep this around. I'm willing to at least give it a try because it is that beautiful. I mean, why wouldn't I want to keep this around still? I'll be very curious to hear what you have to say. Okay, this next one I'm also still torn about, but I'm leaning towards saying goodbye to it. This is Ghost Written by David Mitchell. This is a collection of 9 linked stories from the king of the mind benders. And the reason why I got this one at a library book sale, got this one at a library book sale, is because I saw that one of those 9 stories focuses on a gallery attendant at the Hermitage. And you say anything about St. Petersburg and you've immediately got my interest. But I'm just not sure about David Mitchell. I've tried some of his other books and let's just say his charms have yet to have an effect on me. So I don't know about this one. Maybe it's one I can try a chapter from, depending on what you guys have to say about it. This is a review copy that I got a very long time ago, and I should probably finally figure out what I want to do with it. This is Stork Mountain by Miroslav Pankov. This is the story of a young Bulgarian boy who returns to his birth country in search of his grandfather who disappeared 3 years prior to the events of this novel. I could go either way with this one. I love that you can tell that I'm a bird nerd, even when you look at my fiction collection, because you'll notice birds popping up on all of these different covers. You can see what attracted me to the book in the first place. There's a bird on a cover. I'm probably going to pick up that book and at least see what it's about. But this next one is called Solo by Rana Descupta. And in this book, there is an elderly Bulgarian man thinking back on his life and telling his life story. There's a lot of Bulgaria on shelf number 5, apparently. But this one, like Stork Mountain, is another question mark. I have another Angela Carter book here. I had another one of her books on a previous shelf. I don't know why I had split those up. Same thing with the Meg Wolitzers. But this one is Wise Children, which is about the entangled fates of 2 theatrical families, which definitely sounds like something I would like to read about. I think I got this one fairly recently, so this one's going to stay. Okay, then there's Wide Open by Nicola Barker. This one I picked up remaindered after I really liked her book, 5 Miles from Outer Hope. This one follows a cast of kooky characters who all live on the Isle of Sheppey. I don't know if I'm feeling this one still. Has anyone read this? This next book came from a book box, or rather a small business box. It contained a number of different products from different small businesses in the Pittsburgh area that they were selling when the pandemic first happened last year and everyone was forced to close down just to keep the businesses running. I bought one of those boxes, and inside was a book from White Whale Bookstore in our Bloomfield neighborhood. This is American Spy by Lauren Wilkinson. This book is the story of a young Black woman working for the FBI in 1986, and she is tasked with helping to orchestrate a coup to take down a president with communist ideologies. I could definitely still see myself picking this one up, but if you have read it, please let me know what you thought. Okay, this next book, it's a really cool book. It's an older book. It's in great condition. I know why I picked it up at the time, but I don't know if I'm ever realistically going to read it. It's called The Passion Flower Hotel by Rosalind Erskine, and it's about this group of teenage girls who turn their proper English boarding school into a bordello. It sounds interesting, but I just can't ever see a time when I would pick this up. So unless there's really, really good feedback, I'm going to plan on getting rid of this one. Next up is History of a Pleasure Seeker by Richard Mason. This book is the story of a young man who accepts a job as a tutor to the troubled son of Europe's top hotel mogul, and when he does so, he enters a world of glamour and excess. I can definitely see what appealed to me about this book way back whenever I bought this one, but I'm not quite sure I'm feeling the same pull to this story that I did when I originally got it, so this one could go. Okay, this one I remember buying because the little girl on this cover, to me, looks just like Kiernan Shipka from her Mad Men days prior to The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, when she was the little girl on Mad Men. This little girl looks just like her. This is The Chocolate Money by Ashley Prentice Norton. I mean, look at that. Does she not look just like Kiernan Shipka? This book is about an heiress to her family's fortune. They were in the chocolate business, hence the chocolate money. But it's about her and her daughter and the relationship that they have, the dysfunctional relationship that they have. And I went through this whole period, I want to say between 2014 and 2016, where I really, really loved reading about rich people behaving badly. That's like so much of the fiction that I picked up around that time. But now that I'm several years past that, those books just don't have the same effect on me anymore. So I could pick this up in the future, but it just doesn't appeal to me in the same way it did back then. So this one is another one I'm just unsure about. Yeah, it definitely seems like we're moving into a chunk of books that I just don't know what to do with. So your feedback would be greatly appreciated. One of those is Anil's Ghost by Michael Ondaatje. This is by the author of The English Patient. I don't own a copy of that book, but I'm, ironically enough, more interested in reading that book than I am in reading this book. This is about a Sri Lankan-born woman who was educated in the West, who returns to her birth country as a forensic anthropologist to investigate this campaign of organized murders. This is a very big name author, so I'm assuming at least one of you out there has read this. This next one is another one that I just don't know about. It's called Sweet Dates in Basra by Jessica Gigi. This book is set in Iraq in the 1940s, and a beautiful young woman is sent to the city of Basra to work as a servant, and she also develops a friendship with a young Jewish boy. I have never heard anyone talk about this, which does make me the slightest bit nervous. But a book with a very similar cover is The Bridges of Constantine by Alim Mosteghanemi. This book tells the story of a former revolutionary in the Algerian War of Liberation. He's living in self-exile in Paris, he's working as an artist, and he falls in love with the daughter of his former revolutionary commander. This one actually sounds really good. I think I want to keep this one. This next one has a gorgeous cover. I think I got this one at a used bookstore. It's called The Book of Fires by Jane Borradaile. This is historical fiction. It is set in the mid-18th century, and it follows a 17-year-old runaway who begins working as an apprentice to a fireworks maker. And given my personal disdain for fireworks that has only grown worse over the years, has nothing to do with grumpiness and everything to do with the fact that they sound like gunshots, I should probably just get rid of this one. More historical fiction, this is Sex Wars by Marge Piercy. This is an epic work of historical fiction that follows a young Jewish immigrant as she searches for her sister in post-Civil War era New York City, and apparently she bumps into some very big names of the day, like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, and even Anthony Comstock. This one sounds really intriguing, but I'm just not 100% sure I want to keep it. Another truly epic work of historical fiction that was on shelf number 5 is a book called We the Drowned by Karsten Jensen. This is a seafaring novel that contains apparently just about everything you can imagine. You can see how big it is. But this one was really, really big on BookTube back when I got started. So I put it on my wish list and I received it in the very first book exchange, book swap I did, like right after I started my channel. You can go back and watch that video if you want. It was back in my days of being a blonde. I also know that I was fighting a truly horrific cold in that video, but I was pushing through it based on pure raw excitement because I had never done anything like that before. And this is one of the books I received. I can't believe all these years later, I still haven't read this book. I definitely want to, and I need to, so I'm going to keep it. Another seafaring tale. This is English Passengers by Matthew Neal. This book is about a group of rum smugglers in the 19th century who have all of their goods confiscated by customs. So in order to make money, they have to charter out their ship. And they pick up these 2 Englishmen who are headed to Tasmania to apparently do some scientific research. I could be convinced to keep this one around if anyone thinks it's good, but otherwise I'll probably let it go. Now we get to the part of shelf 5 that contained all the darker books and the fantasy books, and this first one is a campus novel called Old School by Tobias Wolff. This book is set at a prep school in New England, of course, and the main character is obsessed with literature. I'm certainly thinking about keeping this one, but we'll see. Okay, by the looks of this next one, it appears to be the start of a series, which I can't say I knew until this moment, and it definitely makes me want to get rid of it already, because I'm not the biggest reader of series. This book is called Compulsion by Martina Boone, and this one is about a haunted South Carolina plantation. Yeah, I definitely think I want to get rid of this one. Okay, this next one I got at a library book sale, and I remember I got it at a library book sale because I remember having a hell of a time trying to get the stickers off of this thing. I think I did a decent job, not perfect, but decent. This is called The Glass Demon by Helen Grant. This seems to be a mystery book. It's about the daughter of a German scholar who is on the hunt for a priceless artifact that someone out there seems determined to keep hidden. It sounds really interesting, but I'll be eager to hear what you thought of it if you've read it. This next one is a work of fantasy, and even though, like I mentioned in prior videos within this project, I'm not looking to keep a ton of fantasy books because I just don't reach for it very much, I might make an exception in the case of this book because it sounds that fantastic This book is called Creatures of Will and Temper by Molly Tanzer. This book is set in Victorian England, and it follows a woman fencer chaperoning an aspiring art critic. Then there's a whole underground world that involves the supernatural. I'm pretty positive I'm going to keep this one. More fantasy. This next one is called Aleph the Unseen by G. Willow Wilson. It is about a young man who comes into possession of a mysterious book that helps him open a door into another world. This one, I think, is a maybe. This next book is the start of a very popular fantasy series. I've seen a lot of people talk about it over the years. This is Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich. It's about a detective constable who is also a trainee wizard. I'm just not convinced that this series is for me, but let me know what you think. And then the final book on shelf number 5, meaning that this is the final book I'll be showing you in this project. This is Moth and Spark by Anne Leonard. This book is about a prince who is tasked with freeing dragons from bondage. I could go either way with this one, so I will wait to make any decisions until I see what your feedback is. So there you have it. Those are all the books on the final shelf that I am looking to weed through for this project. If you have any comments, any opinions on any of the books you've seen in this video, please put those in the comment section below. I will be reading them and consulting them over the next couple weeks. And then after I make my preliminary decisions, all the books that I'm still unsure about, the 5 books that I'm still unsure about, I'll be reading from in the Try a Chapter tag. And that next Try a Chapter tag will be the final video for this project. I'll be talking a little bit about the project overall, how I think it went. I'll be giving you some final numbers. It's going to be a good time. In the meantime, after leaving me your comments, letting me know what you think about these books, if you'd like to keep up with what I'm reading and writing about right now, you can find me on a variety of different places around the internet, including Goodreads and Instagram, where I'm the most active. The links to all of my profiles will be at the bottom of the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you in advance for all of your help, as always. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.